My name is Jeanine Lorena, BA Ed 1C, and I'm going to report about Chapter 8. It's all about the Filipino values. First, values are universal, shared by all people. What we call Filipino values are those given emphasis in the culture and tradition of the Filipinos. They shape character or ugaling Filipino. Ang mga halaga or paniniwala ay pangkahalatan ay binabahagi ng lahat ng tao. Ang tinatawag nating Filipino values ay ang mga binibigyang diin sa kultura at tradisyon ng mga Pilipino. The study of cultural values belongs also to ethics. Ang pag-aaral ng mga pagpapahalagang pangkultura ay nabibilang din sa etika. Filipino cultural values. Values do not belong exclusively to Filipinos, but certain universal values find different meaning and application within the experiential and historical circumstances of the Filipino. Ang mga pagpapahalaga ay hindi eksklusibong pag-aari ng mga Pilipino. Ngunit, ang ilang mga universal na halaga ay nakahanap ng iba't ibang kahulugan at aplikasyon sa loob ng experimental at makasaysayang mga pangyayari ng mga Pilipino. Filipino values are those we derive from our culture or way of life, from a distinctive way to becoming human in this particular place and time. It springs from their peculiar way of viewing life, its origin, its meaning, and its purposes. Ang mga pagpapahalagang Pilipino ay yaong hinahango natin sa ating kultura o paraan ng pamumuhay mula sa ating natatanging paraan hanggang sa pagiging tao sa partikular na lugar at panahon na ito. It springs from their peculiar way of viewing life, its origin, its meaning, and its purpose. 1. Values of the Filipino. Ito na po yung mga example ng mga pag-ugali o mga nakasanayan ng mga Pilipino. Una dito ay ang pananalig sa may kapal. Comes from the belief that God is the supreme creator. The next one, pag-ibig. And the next one, pakikipagkapwa. So, alam naman po natin kung ano pong ibig sabihin ng pakikipagkapwa. Next, ang pagpapahalaga sa pamilya. Although, lahat naman po tayo may mga pagpapahalaga po sa ating pamilya. The next one, ito na po yung hiya. And the last, utang na loob. Filipino moral idea. Success is measured in the terms of moral respectability, or ito yung sinasabi nating, di baling mahirap basta't may dangal. The ultimate expectation is somebody for everybody to act the way or rational being ought to behave, more fundamental than, or ito yung sinasabing magpakalalaki o magpakababae, is the conceptual expectation of magpakatao. 1. Objective and subjective values. Both values are both subjective and objective. Ang objective, in the sense that they are things that are valuable and desirable. Objective, sa diwa na sila ay mga bagay na mahalaga at kanais-nais. At ang subjective naman, in the sense that they are presuppose a subject that is a person who is valuing or experiencing such value. Halimbawa dito, sa diwa na sila ay pinapalagay na isang paksa, iyon ay isang tao na nagpapahalaga o nakararanas ng ganoong halaga. Values are either positive or negative. So, alam naman natin kung ano yung positive or negative sa buhay ng isang tao. Pag sinabi natin positive, when they contribute to the developmental of proper attitude and behavior. Si positive, yan yung kapag nag-aambag sila sa pag-uunlad ng wastong saloobin at pag-uugali. And the negative one, when they do not tend or lend to the developmental or proper behavior, but instead lead to the corruption of behavior. Si negative naman, kapag hindi sila nagpapahiram sa pagbuo ng wastong pag-uugali, ngunit sa halip ay humahantong sa katiwalian ng pag-uugali. And the sixth one, while values are objectively good, or it is a hence we call them values. Their use or application by the subject that is subjectively may be an occasion for them to be twisted by misplaced or motives. Ang kanilang paggamit o aplikasyon ng paksa, iyon ay subjectively. Maring isang okasyon para sila ay baluktot ng mga maling motibo. Signal gives us an example of the ambivalence of our pakikisama value system. Ang signal ay nagbibigay sa atin ng isang halimbawa ng ambivalence ng ating pakikisama or yung tinatawag nating value system. The next one, another means of achieving SIR or ito yung tinatawag nating smooth interpersonal relations is pakikisama. Alam naman natin sa buhay ng tao, lahat tayo, kumbaga may kinaugalian tayo na yun nga tinatawag natin pakikisama sa or pakikipagkapwa sa isang tao or relative. Ito yung tinatawag na pakikisama. Comes from the word sama, which means accompany or go along with. Means giving in or yielding to the will of the leader on the majority so that the decision of the group becomes unanimous. Meaning, nangangahulugan ng pagsuko o pagsuko sa kagustuhan ng pinuno sa nakararami upang ang desisyon sa grupo ay maging nagkakaisa. Is double standard mentality. The Filipino moral behavior is characterized as ambivalent, meaning that the Filipino is comfortable with a double standard mentality. Plainly, the values recognized are allowed to play a dual role, not unlike that Jekyll and Hyde. The truth, says Father Gorospe, is that Filipino values are ambivalent in the sense that they are a potential for good and evil. They may help or hinder personal and national development depending on how they are understood or practiced or lived. Father Gorospe wonders whether this double standard is not in fact the result of our society's value system, which intrudes on the value system of the individual. Social expectation or pressure from family and community simply make it difficult for the individual Filipino to act in accordance with his personal convictions. Is erroneous norms of morality. Father Gorospe traces the roots of double standard morality to the adherence of Filipinos to false norms of morality. Accordingly, Filipinos judge what is right and wrong on the basis of number 1, group-centeredness or group thinking. The next one, on the basis of shame and fear of authority figure. Group thinking is the mentality of the herd. Where the lead carabao goes, there the rest of the carabaos go. What is right or wrong depends on what is favored by the group as a group, instead of listening to his conscience coming from within his being. Example for this, ito ay ang mentalidad ng naririnig na kung ano ang tama o mali ay depende sa kung ano ang pinapabura ng grupo, sa halip na pakinggan ang kanyang konsensya na nagmula sa kanyang pagkatao. The next one is the norm of morality which Filipino are inclined to follow is based on fear or shame of what authority figure. This is the don't to be caught attitude. According to these norms, it is alright to do wrong provided one is not caught doing it. Ang iba pang pamantay ng moralidad na hilig sundin ng Pilipino ay batay sa takot o kahihiyan sa awtoridad. At ayon sa pamamantayan nito, ayos lang na gumawa ng mali kung hindi mahuhuling ginagawa ito. Reorientation of attitudes. The solution of the moral ambiguity of the Filipinos depends largely on the attitude towards the problem itself, na kung saan ito ay ang solusyon na moral na kalooban ng mga Pilipino ay higit na nakasalalay sa saloobin ng problema mismo. These three difficulties must be overcome. First, ignorance Filipino must be made aware of problem. One who is not aware of an illness does not go to a doctor. Similarly, a Filipino unaware of the inconsistency in his moral outlook will not attempt to correct himself. There is indeed a need to internalize values to make them a part of one's inner character. Values are not clothes to wear. They are the sinews of human behavior. They are what a person ought to become as a human being. Explanation for this, dapat alamin ang problema. Ang isang taong hindi nakakaalam ng isang sakit ay hindi pumupunta sa doktor. Gayun din, ang isang Pilipino na walang kamalayan sa hindi pagkakatugma sa kanyang moral na pananaw ay hindi magtatangka na itama ang kanyang sarili. Talagang kailangan na i-internalize ang mga halaga upang maging bahagi ito ng panloob na katangian ng isang tao. Ang mga halaga ay hindi damit na isinusuot at sila ang mga ugat ng pag-uugali ng tao. Sila ang nararapat na maging tao bilang isang tao. Complacency is the feeling of being comfortable. Present state of affairs leads one to be indifferent to existing problems. One who is complacent is afraid to make any alteration of his behavior. He is afraid of the efforts and looks at them as painful or difficult process. Virtue, precisely, come from the Latin vir, meaning man. It requires manly effort to discipline oneself, to convert one's inclinations to tendencies toward what is good. The next one, rationalization, is the mental turning from the real issues. It is an attitude intended for escape responsibility. It is a ready excuse for doing what is wrong. Ako'y tao lamang. Ganyan lang ang buhay. Uso yan. Is the rationalization. Core values of new Filipinos. Moral maturity is a process of conversion. It means shedding of the old self and putting one new self. Ito ay ang moral na kapanahunan ay isang proseso na pagbabalik loob. Nangangahulugan ito ng pagtanggal ng dating sarili at paglalagay ng bagong sarili. For the conversion to be total, it must work from within the person. It involves new way of thinking, new perception of realities. Para maging kabuuan ang pagbabalik loob, dapat itong gumana mula sa loob ng tao. Ito ay nasasangkot ng bagong paraan ng pag-iisip, bagong pag-uunawa sa mga katotohanan. The human person has value, not because of what he was in terms of material possession, but for what he is created, gifted by God with intellect and will, na kung saan ang tao ay may halaga, hindi dahil sa kung ano siya sa mga tuntunin ng material na pag-aari, ngunit para sa kung ano siya, malikhaing kaloob ng Diyos na may talino at kalooban. From Father Gorospe, explore the potential of values which they consider core, central to the education and eventual transformation of the Filipinos. Commitment. Values are not acquired genetically. They are personal, cultivated, and lived. They involve a commitment where one submits himself to the rational demand, his intellect for a truth, and the moral demands of the will to abide by what is good, na kung saan ang mga halaga ay hindi nakuha sa genetically. Ito ay personal na nilinang at nabubuhay. Kasangkot sila sa isang pangako kung saan isinusuko ng isang tao ang kanyang sarili sa makatwirang paghingi ng kanyang talino para sa katotohanan at ang mga moral na kahilingan ng kalooban at sumusunod sa kung ano ang mabuti. Characteristics of a responsible person. Father Grosbe speaks of moral commitment as a responsible to the Christian ideals. The characteristic he describes, however, apply to man as man, insofar as man must be committed to the good of his nature. After all, before one is a Christian, he must first be a good man. At ayon nga kay Father Grosbe, na ang moral na nakatuon isang responsable sa mga mithing Kristiyano. Ang katangiang inilalarawan niya, gayon pa man, ay naangkop sa tao bilang tao, hanggat ang tao ay dapat na nakatuon sa kabutihan ng kanyang kalikasan. Pagkatapos ng lahat, bago ang isang Kristiyano, ay dapat muna siyang maging isang mabuting tao. Responsible has the following qualities. Number 1, a responsible person has the ability to differentiate between what is essential and accidental. Insofar as commitment to moral values is also a religious response, from Grospe writes, na kung saan ang responsableng tao ay may kakayahang mag-iba sa pagitan ng kung ano ang mahalaga at hindi sinasadya. Sa ngayon, bilang nakatuon sa mga pagpapalagang moral ay isa ring reliyosong tugon. And an individual is all religiously mature if he can differentiate between a functional and an experimental or lived type of religion. And the number 2, a responsible person has the ability to internalize his values. For a responsible person, life is not an external following of required actions. Instead, life is the expression of love coming from the heart and mind, motivating all his action and desires. Pag ikaw nga po ay isang responsableng tao, magagawa mo ang isang mabuting gawain na kung saan ito ay isang ability para po makagawa tayo ng isang makabuluhang desisyon at tamang gawain. Love, faith. This is needed for intellect conversion. One should be ready to deny want is false and to accept want is true. It involves genuine concern for study and research, denying guessworks as reliable sources of information. Ito ay kailangan para sa pagbabalik loob ng talino. Ang isa ay dapat handa na tanggihan ang gusto ng mali at ang tanggapin ang gusto ay totoo. Ito ay nasasangkot ng tunay na pagmamalasakit para sa pag-aaral at pananaliksik, na tinatanggihan ang hula bilang isang maaasang mapagkukunan ng informasyon. According to Father Gorospe, developing creative and critical thinking in order to transform our environment and develop a culture expression of the ideals and aspiration of the Filipino people and build structures for a just and humane society. Is love. Love for the good should be basis of decision and choices. One should be ready to choose not on the basis of what is pleasant or unpleasant, but solely on the basis of what objectively good under the circumstances. Ito ay yung dapat maging batayan ng pagpapasya at mga pagpipilian. Dapat maging handa na pumili, hindi batay sa kung ano ang kaaya-aya o hindi ka nais-nais, ngunit batay lamang sa kung ano ang talagang mabuti sa ilalim ng mga pamantayan. Religious faith is needed to reason, and good intention are not enough. Integrity. Integrity stands for wholesomeness or completeness. It connotes perfection of the whole from perfection of its part. Integrity means honesty. It means the repudiation of lying, deceit, cheating, stealing, fraud, hypocrisy, and dishonesty in all its form. Integrity is the essence of self-respect. One should love himself and keep his dignity. Ang integridad ay nangangahulugan ng katapatan. Ito ay nangangahulugan ng pagtanggi sa pagsisinungaling, paglilinlang, pagdaraya, pagnanakaw, pagkukunwari, at kawalan ng katapatan sa lahat ng anyo nito. Ang integridad ay ang diwa ng paggalang sa sarili. Dapat mahalin ng isang tao ang kanyang sarili at panatilihin ang kanyang dignidad. Is hard work. We, the Filipino, are hardworking. Many Filipino have left their families and homes for work abroad of work, and yet, then is a need to develop the proper attitude towards work. But the inordinate desire to get rich quickly and too much is an entrapment. If the soul, when the materialistic goals become the primary and soul become reason for working, works becomes an excuse for greed and contention. Ang labis na pagnanais na yumaman ay mabilis at labis ay isang bitag kung ang kaluluwa. Kapag ang materialistikong mga layunin ay naging pangunahin at nag-iisang dahilan ng pagtatrabaho ay naging dahilan para sa kasakiman at pagtatalo. Justice requires that we share our talents and materials possession with those who are unfortunate and poor. The concept that giving aims, donates, and assistance to the poor is only a demand of charity, and therefore voluntary must give way to the concept of social justice. Social justice is founded on the principle that earthly good belong to all men, for them to share equally, not in the mathematical sense of equality, but in the prudential sense that is, that all have the right to a decent life, that since people are not similarly gifted with the tools of productivity is become an obligation for those gifted to care for those left endowed all men must share proportionately the goods of the earth, is love. Love for the good should be basis of decision and choices. One should be ready to choose not on the basis of what is pleasant or unpleasant, but solely on the basis of what objectively good under the circumstances. Ito ay yung dapat maging batayan ng pagpapasya at mga pagpipilian. Dapat maging handa na pumili hindi batay sa kung ano ang kaaya-aya o hindi ka nais-nais, ngunit batay lamang sa kung ano ang talagang mabuti sa ilalim ng mga pamantayan. Religious faith is needed to reason, and good intention are not enough.